Hello everyone, and welcome to our Lunch and Learn series again. And for those of you that have been on with us for the past 4 weeks, you'll know this is the last of the currently scheduled Lunch and Learn series. So we appreciate everybody who has taken the time out to join us over these 4 lunch hours. And we appreciate the questions that came up on the last session. And again, hope that this is of value to you. So without further ado, given we only have 15 minutes, we'll just continue along here. Oh, sorry. So your folks on the call today, myself, Ian Margerison, and still in with us is Bob Gill, leader in the professional services area with us. And we appreciate Bob taking time out from a lot of client engagements to be with us for these Lunch and Learns over these past 4 weeks. And again, just a reminder, we welcome your questions again this time. So please go to your GoToMeeting there and enter in any questions you have as we go through this. And something, again, just a special encouragement, given this is our last one, you all, I believe, have my email contacts from the invitations. If you have any other topics you'd like to cover, anything that we can touch on in an upcoming Lunch and Learn series, please email us and let us know. We would appreciate that, and we're happy to try and accommodate each one. So today, in the last of our series, the topic is using reference variables within Clarity 7. And as you can see, we've gone down through copying a report and traffic lighting, creating dynamic columns, applying sorting, and then today using reference variables as the key topic for today that we will be turning over for Bob. Now, just the objectives, of course, are to just give you some insight and help your day with Clarity 7 be a better day, and that's really what this is about. And then, of course, for those of you that aren't already working with us or folks that we support, we just want to introduce Clear Insight to you, and that we're available for insights, questions, and answers. We've got a lot of insight as to what IBM is doing with Clarity 7, and have had numerous discussions with leaderships in product management and insight on where Clarity is going and things. So we're happy to connect with you separately on the phone and share our insights based upon where you're going with Clarity as well. And then just as an FYI, so we help our customers with Clarity 7, also with the FSR product, given we're focused to the Office of Finance, Disclosure Management. A lot of folks as well with upgrades and transitions to Cognos TM1 or Express and Business Intelligence, and we're also doing cloud-based solutions for folks if you're looking to move things to the cloud. There's a new solution called Planning Analytics that's getting a lot of face time down at Insight this week with IBM, and we're happy to share some of that with you. And then, of course, on the predictive side with Watson and SPSS are all areas of our ongoing expertise that we're happy to work and share with you. So today's topic, using reference variables, back to Clarity 7, and I will turn this over to Bob, who will take us through the lion's share of our rest of our 15 minutes. Thanks, Bob.
Great. Thanks, Ian. So what I want to talk about today is reference variables. I figure I'll go through a little bit of an overview first and let you know what we're going to see, and then we'll go and dive into it. So reference variables, instead of selecting something from a dimension, we need to apply a formula to figure out. That's when we use reference variables. So say, rather than just clicking through and saying, I want to look at net income, maybe they select, a user would select a cost center or a particular company, and then from one of those selections, we need to figure out what a selection in a different dimension would be. Or maybe it could be anything that we need a formula to figure out. An example we're going to use today, it's going to be a user will select the last period with actuals, so last month with actuals, and we'll show a blend of actuals and budget. So I'll walk through this in an example, but the concepts that are going to be important here is what's the difference between a forecast and a budget. So for folks that aren't familiar with the difference, I want to make sure I cover that briefly. So a budget is typically an annual plan with review and approval by senior leadership. It's completed before the budget period starts. It's usually used to set annual enterprise goals and often used in discussions when setting compensation targets. Now, in comparison to that, a forecast it's still typically an annual plan, but it's a mix of actuals and budget. So we use actuals for closed periods, historical, so we know what's happened in those periods. And then we typically use revised budget for the remaining periods. This could be the same periods that were part of the original budget, or this could be, starting with the base of what was planned for the remaining of the year in the budget. We update those each period, or however frequently the forecast is updated, to try and be in line with the annual goals. And forecasting could also be done at a higher level than the full budget, rather than doing it, if you do the budget maybe down to a monthly basis, the forecasting could maybe it's done at a quarterly basis. So you only do 4 forecasts through the year to see how things are going. And typically there's no approval required for a forecast, and it's really used to monitor current trends towards annual goals. So why do people care? Well, forecasting provides a way for the team to see how they're doing right now relative to annual goals, giving them an opportunity to strategize about what actions to take to still meet annual targets. So now let's flip over to Clarity and see what this looks like. So here we have Clarity. I've got a item here. So when I bring up the template, there's only one page option. There's only one page option here where we look at we're going to ask folks to select the last actuals period. So in this case, we'll pick August. And now we see this template comes up. Now January through August is showing my actuals with a white background here. And the September through December is showing yellow cells. So the yellow here represents this is kind of it's still base plan, but I can make changes to this. So right now our forecasting trend is this for a full year. So maybe if this doesn't match up with my annual targets were for these different items, maybe I can adjust the remaining periods of my base plan or my revised base plan to still meet my annual targets. So what does this look like in Clarity? So here's the same template. And if I open it up, I'm going to show all the rows and columns, show the Excel view. So all we're doing is we keep a quick little list here of, if it's January, what's the next period? February. If it's February, what's the next period? March. Now, a little bit of a note for folks moving to TM1, you don't need to have these kind of hidden lookup tables inside a particular template or report when you're using TM1. TM1 is smart enough to have these attributes stored within the dimension. So I can always, if I know that someone's picked January, I can just look up what the next period was or the last period. I don't need to hide this kind of stuff in there. But for our purposes now, so the first step is we want to figure out what do they select. So the formula is just right here. Here we call it page option time, and I want to get the caption. So as an example, this gives me APR for April. So the next step is, well, what's my actual range going to be? So we need to define an MDX formula to say, well, what does that look like? So here's the formula. So I use curly braces, time dot, jan, colon gives me the range. So I'm going to take January to really whatever was selected. And then as an example, this is what it kind of looks like when it's all filled out. So time dot jan, colon, April. Now for the next period, now we have to do a little bit of a lookup to figure out what's the next period from, in this case, April's our example in the sheet. So we look up April, we get May, and we would want to see May show up as our next period, and we're going to set up the same formula here to say, well, time dot, this will be evaluated to May through December. That gives us our budget range. Now if we flip back our view to the split view, so first starting with the document tab, we only got our one page option for time, so it's just a selection of the different elements in our time dimension, January through December. And we have a row range for account, being all the accounts we're going to show. That's all the only row range we're looking at here. It's a fairly simplistic grid here. Now the column ranges is where a little bit of the complexity comes in. So we've got one column range for budget. Scroll over a bit so you can see. So budget represents the dynamic set of columns for our budget periods, or the remaining budget that we can make changes to with the yellow formatting. And we also have the actual. So this is going to be the format, the periods that are locked that cannot be changed. Now you notice under variables, I've got two reference variables here that we'll go into the detail about. So that we want a variable for actual range. So I just give it a name, variable actual range. The source is going to be Excel because I want this to be a formula. And then I just give it the cell reference. So here I'm saying it's cell E22, I have E21, I have E21 selected. So you see that's the formula that will evaluate for this variable. So the one nice thing is Clarity is smart enough to know that it will evaluate these variables before it does the grids. So that's a key point because oftentimes folks may try to do another way of figuring out these different pieces for the grid. You need to do it with a reference variable, otherwise it might not go in the right sequence. So I set up a reference variable to say figure this one out, and I'm going to use it later on. So similarly, I've got a variable for the budget range that just looks at my budget formula here, and that's the budget formula here. So it's, you know, for if they've picked April, this would show May to December. And now we're going to look at the next work pane here. So I'm going to look at the data tab, data work pane. And for our OLAP map, you know, we've got our scenario and time along the columns and accounts along the rows. For the rows, we only have one group, and we're just going to show the descendants of gross margin. For properties, I want to call out that for the column range for actuals, this one's retrieve only, so that'll enforce that no one can make changes to actuals, which I want to make sure that's the case. And the column range for budget is retrieve and allow update. So folks can send data back for whatever scenario we select for this piece to make updates to it. Now when we go into the grouping here, now you'll see the references to the variable we set up. When you expand the variables item on the left-hand work pane, by just double-clicking the variable here, it shows up here with these curly braces around it. So that gives us it'll take the evaluated variable, use it here in this column member, and then evaluate the grid to show the right numbers on the grid. Similarly for the budget, we have our variable budget range, and then we add it to our variable budget range here. So now, if I flip back to Clarity, so now you can see this is what it looks like evaluated. So the step one was let's figure out the caption. And the caption that we selected is August. So our actual range is January through August. The next period is September. Our budget range becomes September through December. So this nicely brings together some of the previous lunch and learns that we've had. Is it encapsulates dynamic columns. It also talks a little bit about forecasting and budgets, and it shows us how you can use reference variables to kind of bring these things together into something that could be quite valuable for folks. So just quickly recapping. So what were the steps that we followed here? So we selected an item for which to start. In this case, it was a page option time. We set up the formula, so we show the contents of the selected page option. We created an MDX string defining our actuals range. We created an MDX string defining our budget range. We created a reference variable for the formula result, variable actual range, variable budget range. And we applied the reference variable somewhere in the map. In this case, it was in the column variables. So I think we just snuck in under time. And Ian, I think I'll pass it back to you to wrap up. And if there's any questions, let me know. We can go through those.
All right, excellent, Bob. Thank you very much once again. Always amazes me how short and sweet 15 minutes is and can go by, but I think you covered a lot of tremendous content. And again, once again, we hope it was of value for everybody on the call. There does not appear to be any questions at this time, but again, here is my contact information. And please don't hesitate to reach out with any thoughts, questions, or anything that we can help you with on the list of items, Clarity 7, of course, and any of the other solutions that we touch on to support the Office of Finance. So once again, we would extend our thanks to you and hope you found this little set of sessions of value to you. Appreciate it. And oh, there might have been a question that has popped in here. Yep, Bob, there is a couple of questions. Just coming in here fast and furious. If so, for any that can stay on, here's the first question, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a performance difference between using a reference variable versus a snippet?
Good question. So I guess the classic answer is it's going to depend. I would say that they're effectively doing the same thing. So both a snippet and a reference variable are going to calculate something usually based off of a page option and then put that into a query. So the performance is going to be comparable between those two things. I wouldn't say there's a benefit either way. I think from a maintenance perspective, my preference is to go with reference variables rather than snippets, but that's just a style preference.
Okay, good, Bob, thanks. The next question, there's actually the next two questions, they're kind of related. Any tips for using regf variables with relational queries and also using refbar? So using regf variables, if I've read that right, with relational queries, or refbar. Oh, no, sorry, spelling mistake. Coming in here. Does that make sense to you, Bob?
It does. So
reference. Yeah.
Yeah, reference variables. So I think when you're using reference variables to go to relational queries, something to be really conscious of is how quotes are handled. So make sure you're handling quotes so that if someone picks a member that happens to have a quote in it, it doesn't mess up your query. But other than that, they should work fine. Clarity 7 supports multiple relational queries within one template, so it should be fine. I know I've seen oddities if you try to do too many things within the relational query builder. Sometimes it doesn't parse them right. So you may, from a maintenance perspective, you may run into a challenge where you've got a reference variable that you've spent all this time coding in a where clause for maybe a SQL statement, and then later on when you come back to change it, when you open it up in the relational query designer, it may butcher that where statement. So be conscious of that. If you can, I'd say try and put the whole SQL statement as a string inside your Excel and pull it in that way. But yeah, it should be fine. Reference variables should work fine in relational.
Okay, good. Thanks for the person who put in the question for highlighting that for me. And Bob, once again, thanks for answering those questions. So those are all the questions right now, and so we will leave you with that and wish you all the best in your future work with Clarity and your day-to-day, and then don't hesitate to reach out to us with any thoughts, questions, or help we can provide you from the gang here at Clear Insight. Thanks a lot, and have yourself a great day. Bye for now.